Welcome to our Week 9 KK Collision Football Show, celebrating 100 years of Columbus Grove football. Have Columbus Grove historian, I don't know what you want to call him, historian, expert, guru, all those things. Ned Stechschulte here with us, and Ned is going to introduce who he brought with us tonight.
Right here to my right, I have Larry Clymer. Larry, his dad played for Grove in the late 20s and early 30s. He graduated from Grove in 1956, played on some really good teams, played for one of our best coaches, Colin Stackhouse, back in the day. He was a very, very good coach, also the principal of the high school, so he got the kids' attention quite a bit. His boys all played for Grove in the 80s, early 80s and mid 80s, and I played with one in the late 80s, and then his grandchildren have all come through Grove in the last couple decades. So 4 generations of Clymers have graced that field in Columbus Grove. And then the main thing about Larry and him and his brother, his twin brother Gary, they donated the funds to put in the stadium. In '96 they started building that. Didn't get completed that first summer, but then the next summer we got it done, and we opened it up in '97. We won our first 23 games in that stadium, and then we had some really good football there for a long time, and we still do. I keep you guys informed of our record there all the time. We've won over 80% of our games there, and we're really thankful for what the Clymer family has done for Columbus Grove there on our football, not just for the town, but just for our football program too. To my left, I have Denny Ricker. He's a 72 graduate. He, in 1974, started announcing Grove football games and basketball games. He was the voice of the Bulldogs, one of the classiest announcers in Northwest Ohio, if not Ohio, for 46 years, Denny?
46.
46
Wow.
years, and he came back and announced our band show a couple weeks ago that we hosted. All-around great guy. You'll never be around a more positive person than Denny Ricker. Him and Denny Paldy coached our midget program for over 20 years. Denny coached 21 years, and Denny Paldy coached 28 years. So he coached a lot of the players that came through when we had a lot of our good teams in the 2000s and 2010s. And then next to Denny is Danny Risser. Danny's a 76 graduate of Columbus Grove. He played for football for Grove. He went to Findlay and played. He came back. He coached for head coach for 3 years in the early 80s, and then when he come back then and coached under Jerry Cooper in the years that we won state, and then he was an assistant with Scott Paldy for a few years. He had 2 sons that graduated from Grove. One went to play college, or they both played college ball. One went to Trine, the other one went to Ohio Wesleyan. Danny lives in that house right behind the stadium, so he can see everything that's going on there. All these guys have been around Grove for their whole lives, and they know a lot of people. Great community members, and that's why I brought them up here.
Outstanding. Thank you guys so much for coming up. We're looking forward to this. Yep. Before we get started, I have a special request from Coach Roney for you. I hear you're a quote machine. Is that true?
Well, Mr. Roney, he probably might be exaggerating, but we try to keep their interest up a little bit. Yeah.
Give us one of your favorite quotes.
Oh, Lord.
Hit him in the mouth is one that he mentioned to me. Can that be?
Well, you know, one of his favorites that he always told us was, every cow thinks its calf is the cutest. So we were talking about the parents and the running backs and the quarterbacks. Every cow thinks its calf is the cutest.
That's good stuff. I don't know if some of them are suitable to say. Some of the,
Hey, you're next to Tori Strock. It's fine.
Yeah, you're not going to offend this crew, I can tell you that.
So during two-a-days, a lot of times the guys be, dragging a little bit, and, we never really took it real easy. And I said, fellas, no sympathy today. You know where to find sympathy. It's between and syphilis in the dictionary. If you want sympathy, that's where you're going to find it, between shit and syphilis in Webster's dictionary.
I love it.
It was always a lot of fun trying to keep their attention. I don't know if that was appropriate, but my wife will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
You'll have to deal with it, or we won't.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
Mr. Clymer.
Yes.
Talk about, there's several questions I'd like to ask you. Talk about some things that make Columbus Grove special. All the generations of your family, you've raised your kids in Columbus Grove. You probably could have left a million times. What makes Columbus Grove so special? And then what was the inspiration behind you and your brother donating the funds to make Clymer Stadium a reality?
Well, for Columbus Grove, we have some terrific people there, and they're very much of a sports-minded, and that's what makes our town very much alive in the sports business here. And you can see we come up pretty strong in the football, basketball, and track. So we're very proud of them. And the stadium, the school was going to build this stadium, and they come to us to see if we would want to build it, because I had a manufacturing plant, and they was doing quite a bit of hee-hawing around what was going to be done. I said, well, why don't you guys just step aside and we'll build it. And we built it, and we actually built the thing in about 4 months. And that probably is one of the better stadiums around, because we built it out of, it's not aluminum, it's steel. And we took it to Chicago and got it all, I can't think what
Galvanized?
Galvanized. So it's never going to rust. And then the seats are aluminum, they're not going to go anywhere. So you ought to have seen when we got it ready to put the seats on, we had the whole town down there putting bolts in the, even some of the people that was about half blind was coming down and doing that. That was Ricker. That was down there.
Denny's brother, Gene. Yep.
I think there was close to 100,000 bolts to put in. Wow. That looked like gnats on the stadium when he was put it together.
Everybody wanted to have a hand in it, didn't they?
And we appreciated that very much, and now they're part of the manufacture of the stadium.
How much pride do you get every time you walk into Clymer Stadium? Do you ever just stop and look around and just beam with pride when you walk in there? It's got to be special.
It's a special, but I think the people is more special than we are.
It's awesome.
And they appreciate it. Yeah.
Why did football get into your blood? Instead, your dad played. What was the reason that football has been such a big love for you, Mr. Clymer? What made football what it got into your blood, and why have you loved football so much?
Oh, well, my dad was a terrific football player in the late 20s and early 30s. I had people, of course, I wasn't around at that time, and some of the older gentlemen in the town, when they went to school with my dad, they would told me how good he was, and people come from all around to watch him play. Most of our competition was in Lima. There wasn't very many schools around that had a football team at that time, and he was really ranked high in Ohio. It was nothing like the rankings we have today, but he was really ranked high in Ohio. Very, very good player. He was only 5'6", 160 pounds, but he was so fast they couldn't catch him, and when they did catch him, they couldn't get him down. So I like to have been there to see that.
The Clymers have a museum. It's all their wild game from all their hunting around the world. Stuffed animals is what I like to call them, but tapestries. But they also have a little area up on the second floor where you have some memorabilia. They have an old mouthpiece that you that they would hold in their mouth, like a metal chin strap or something like that? You had a helmet?
Oh, that was my dad,
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Put it right in their mouth.
Actually, they never wanted to take him out of the game because he was so good, but he broke his nose about 5 times. Well, so they got him a leather something that went around his nose and his head that they tried to get him to, and he broke his nose in that even. So they got one made out of cast iron, and there was a little piece on it that you put in your teeth and hold it, and a strap went around your head. And he never broke his nose again, but it took his front teeth out.
Mr. Clymer, talk about your time playing in the 50s at Grove.
Well, I graduated in '56, and there's a lot of competition at that time. Columbus Grove had a very good records, and we had a lot to live up to. So we had a very good team also. So I was a quarterback at that time, but it wasn't like we have it today. We run the short punt. So we had a lot of people who never seen a short punt before, and we had a lot of fun trying to. They didn't know where the ball was at. So we had some really good players in our team, and I really appreciated playing at Columbus Grove.
You have his passing stats from back in the day, Ned?
No. I'd scrubbed a lot of stats, but back then it was just the scores, pretty much. Never really.
Finally stumped Ned Stechschulte.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, I'll tell you that. Denny, talk for a moment about, doing that for as long as you did, public address and that's got to be a labor of love. How'd you recharge your batteries year after year after year to continue to give as much as you did?
Well, pretty much what Gary says, Columbus Grove's a neat town, and we're just common people, and on a Friday night, you see the lights come on around the stadium, and it draws the people from that 2,500-person town, right around the football field. And a lot of times, if they're like 3 or 4 people deep, they won't know, hey, who ran the ball? Did we score or did we not? A lot of times they'll have their own little conversations over here. Hey, who scored that touchdown? And so I thought, this would be neat to have somebody to, be able to just give them not a play-by-play or anything like that, but just let them know what's happening on the field. Pass complete to Torrey Strock, pickup of 6 yards, 2nd down and 4 for the Bulldogs, balls on the Lipsick 21-yard line. Something like that just to get, the people an idea what's going on. I have several in my family that were blind. And I would look down there and I'd see them, sitting here, and I thought, they've got to know somehow on what's going on. And, so that was kind of the labor of love there, that I could, say something that my brother would get a visual picture in his mind, what was going on. But I've loved Grove my whole life. I've been born on a farm. Grew up in Grove, went to school in Grove. He went to college, come back and that. And then 2 years after college, the guy that was doing the announcing, he asked me, he says, Denny, why don't you do some spotting for me? That would help me out a bunch. Just give me a spot of who's carrying the ball, who's tackling. And so sure, I'll do that. Halfway through that season, he said, my job has changed. I can't do this. I can't do it anymore. He says, you want to take over? And I said, I'll try. I don't know if I can. And that was it. And from there on, we went on. There's a little TV station there one time, but not a TV station, a radio station that was doing a play-by-play of one of Columbus Grove's games. And the announcer, he grabbed me by the arm and pulled me over and says, Denny, I've got to go to the bathroom so really bad. He said, sit down here and do this game until I get to the bathroom and back. You'll just have to kind of take a spot over here. And so but it was neat. You got to know the players. You knew the people from town anyway. But it's been a real blessing through the years. Let's put it that way.
Fast forward into you, Denny, and Denny both. Talk about Grove football in the 70s during your era. Like we hit the 50s over here, Mr. Clymer. Now we're going to fast forward to the 70s.
I know that I have a brother that played back in the 60s, and I always heard the name of Lynn Derbyshire. He was so great quarterback, great runner. I mean, he guided the team. 1959, 1960, I think they only lost one game in the 2 seasons combined, and they were just very, very good. That did not spill over into the 70s. And I know that when I was a senior, we were lucky enough to win one game, the very last game of the year against Crestview. And it was not for a lack of trying. I think we got beat a couple times 6-0. We got like a 12-6 or something like that hung on us. And it was not for a lack of effort, but it just was not there. And we maybe fell into a period where we had a couple different coaches through your high school years, and then, the thinking or maybe the guidance would change a little bit, the way they looked at the game. Now you've got to look at that game the same way. And so, it did change. Then we come to the end of the 70s, into the 80s, and when Dan came over here as a coach, him and another familiar face from Columbus Grove, Rick Mag, and they were on the sidelines and working with the guys and giving back to the town that they loved so much, and that was huge. I can remember being up on top there and say, "Hey, Riss, go get them! Come on, Dan!" And he would get those kids fired up. And I don't know if you've ever met Rick Mag. He's kind of a mountain of a man right there, and he looks like the toughest guy in Northwest Ohio, but you look behind those shades, and he's got a little tear on his eye from side to side. He's got a marshmallow in here. But
Blaine Mack's dad.
Blaine's dad, Ben's dad, Blake's dad, Lawson Mag's grandpa, and just a very, very close, good friend. And glad to have him for that. But you would know Rick a lot better than I did.
And a lot of times folks, they think about Columbus Grove football on maybe the current success we've had in the last 20, 25 years. But they're like any other school or community, there's lean times. And that's exactly what it was. And when I was a head coach in 1981, I had just gotten out of college. No coaching experience. Grove was in a bad place. And when you're 23, I was on the 5-year plan. But, when you're 23, you're bulletproof. You think, someone says, hey, I think before the 1981 season, Mr. Bremer, Mr. Jones called me up. I was working at the Union Bank. I just gotten out of college, and I played for Coach Strom over at Findlay. And he says, hey, can you come down to the school, talk to us? And this was like in May for the upcoming football season. I had no idea. I wasn't looking for a coaching job. And, hey, we really need a football coach. We don't have a football coach. And at 23, you're bulletproof. Sure. You don't think anything about it. We'll figure out the details later. So I had a degree in education I've never taught. I was working at the bank then, and then Ty Mayberry, Ned's brother-in-law, he was just started a garbage business. We played together in high school. And then Rick Mag, as Denny alluded to, we played together in high school. And then Mike Snoke, he was our quarterback back in the mid-'70s. And I said, and none of us were teaching. One was starting a garbage out, one was selling copiers, and one was in the bar business. And sure, we'll do it. And then we got quite an education. I went over and talked to Coach Strom right away, and he kind of scratched his head a little bit. He says, what'd you get yourself into? He said, Coach, what you know? But wasn't damn much. So, let's run block tackle. Let's run block tackle, line up. And, back in the 80s, people would line up. It was 8 guys in the box. There was nobody in a gun. There was no 5 wide. You were back there. There was double tights. You had 2-3 backs in there all the time, and it was line up and see who's going to tough it out. So, and it was a lot of fun. It was quite an experience.
Danny's not giving himself enough credit. I vaguely remember, because my brother played on his first team in '81. He was a guard. And they went 5-4-1 that first year he coached. And the next year they went down a little bit. They went 3-5-8, and then they went 6-4 in '83.
Yeah, fall 83.
Yep, and they had Jeff Basinger at tight end. It's our tight end's dad. Todd Huffman was a quarterback. They had Joe Gerdeman. They had John Diller. They had guys up and down. They were pretty good. And one thing about that 84 team that they can never take away is they shut out Delphus Jefferson when Kevin Fell was there, 14-0 at Grove. And Kevin Fell, I saw him at the state at the halftime there at Massillon a couple years ago during, not at Canton, I mean, at the hospitality room for the coaches, and he was still complaining about that one time. He went to Grove, and they took our quarterback out. They said he had a concussion. Well, it didn't matter because we beat him 14-0. You know, you don't win or lose games on one player. But I remember watching that game, and I'm like, man, we beat Delphus. And right after that is when they went on their big run where they had the Clausen boys and all those guys that they were just, but we beat those guys 14-0 that year.
Wow. They went to state the next year, right, and played Newark Catholic in 85?
85, yeah. It would have been 2 years after that they went to state. But they started their run where they won a bunch of games right after that. And we were one of the last teams to knock them off in regular season. That's something to be super proud of.
Dan, how many years were you the head coach?
Just 3. Then I came back in the 2000s and helped coach with Coach Cooper and Coach Baldy. And, back in the early 80s, when I did meet with Coach Strom, and he says, Coach, what you know? It's run, block, tackle. Let's keep it simple and do those small things well. And we really thought that, what we lacked in, experience, we had to make up. We're going to coach emotion, we're going to play with intensity, and we're going to coach with toughness. And I would really feel that, out of that 5-4-1 season, 2 of the 4 losses were within a touchdown, and a 23-year-old head coach got out-coached in that tie and the 2 losses. And you want do-overs, and that's one thing coaches always get. You always get do-overs. And I think coaching today is more, and I think Coach Schaefer is really given our kids the opportunity because he is more of a player's coach, and he concentrates on let's make it special for these upperclassmen, what they experience. And as a coach, it's not about building your resume, it's about building the kids. They only got 1 shot at their junior or senior year. That's 1 shot. As a coach, you come back anytime and you get do-overs. And I wish I had that to do over as a coach to give my upperclassmen a better shot on those 2 or 3 games. Because we could have, the year before they were, 2-8 and 8, or Ned? Yeah, 2 and 8. And so it was quite a difference. But one thing I was always proud of our kids, we'd always went out and we put up a hell of a fight. We were hard-nosed, and that's been a characteristic of a lot of our Grove kids. And to this day, and back and through whenever, you're going to find some hard-nosed, tough kids.
Let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
So I think, we're all well aware when we think Columbus Grove, we think blue-collar, tough, physical kids. Some communities, though, have a reputation. You can call them country clubbers, you can call them whatever. Some communities don't have that reputation. What makes Grove a tough community? Is it the families? Is it the expectations?
Definitely. I think it's at the family. And I used to have a coaches meeting with parents, and prior to 2 days, what's expected out of us as coaches, what's expected out of players, what's expected out of parents. And it's about the support you get as parents supporting the coaches. So too often, if you have kids going home and at the dinner table say, this coach is being too hard on me, he's doing this, doing that. Parents were supportive of what we were doing. And I think they were more supportive of educators also. And I think now we got to get back to that where parents are supporting the educators and the coaches and say, hey, suck it up, toughen up a little bit. And that's what we have. And that's what we have. And I think that starts with the parents, that starts with the community, and it's about raising good young men and be accountable for what your job is. If you want to play, be better. Just show up and be better. And that's what helped.
The thing about the Grove community is, if you were to be like watching the cars come through Grove, we don't have a whole lot of industry. We have small industry, and not very many people work in Grove. Our school's probably the largest employer in town. But if you look, a lot of people go to Findlay, They go to Lima, they'll go to Ottawa for their jobs, they'll go to Delphus. We're centrally located in all those. So they got to choose to live in Grove because it's their home. You know, that's what they invest their home time in Grove because they're not there for their job. They're there to live their lives. And I think the families that have been in Grove, they realize, hey, this is where home is, and we want to make it the best we can, you know, and support the schools, support the programs that they're doing. And I tell you that it's a choice for people. Like I said, not many people work in Grove. You know, they work outside of Grove.
You know, one of the things too that you look at when we are watching our athletes playing, those are our kids. You know, those, if it might be Dan's son, Jet or Race, but he's my boy. That's, you know, you have that closeness in the community that everybody knows Dan and his wife Cheryl and Jet and Race Risser. Great people. You know, the same thing with Ned. You just know Christian's a heck of a middle linebacker when he was, you know, playing football. And when he was playing midgets, he was a heck of a center and a linebacker back there. And, you know, the kids know kind of what's maybe expected of that next step coming up. If I'm a 10-year-old, I know that by the time I get to junior high, they're going to expect more. When I get into high school, they're going to expect a lot. And I think the school does a great job of bringing them all together. If you've ever been to a Columbus Grove game and they win, after the handshake at Clymer Stadium through there, the whole student body flashes out onto that field and they make a big circle. And as a school, they all do the jumping jacks together, spelling out Bulldog there. And then they all come together. Also, when they walk off the field, there's like a little blacktop area and the practice field over to the side where they all stop and mingle. That's when the community comes over there and talks with them. You know, you might have the barber coming up, you know, and saying, hey, Trent Brazzi, you can use a haircut, stuff like that. But you know, there's just that love of the community with the kids, and this is our town, these are our kids, and there's a lot of pride.
And something I saw that was pretty cool, and I live right next to the athletic field, and something I'm out working in the yard, and people say, why do you want to live so close to school? And I said, well, I'm over there quite a bit watching what's going on. And it was pretty cool one night. I was working out in the yard, and junior high kids were playing their last game. And they had a tough game. And they ended up winning it and going undefeated. But how often do you see varsity kids standing over defense after their practice, supporting them, and then when they run, they rush the field for the junior high kids? That's where it starts. You know, that's where it starts seeing this, you know, the support where, you know, now there's junior high kids, we'll catch them some other time. No, these guys were standing in defense, cheering them on. And then when they win, they rush the field. That's where it's great when you have big, strong, fast kids. But if they have the big, strong, fast kids and lack character and accountability, that shows a lot of character and support for these young kids to want to be part of something next year. And I thought that was pretty impressive. That's probably one of the, from what Grove has done this year, that I probably like that as much as anything. And I thought, yeah, good for them. Good for Coach Schaefer for building character.
Again, a couple. Commercial. Go ahead.
One of the neat things about, if you've never been to Columbus Grove, we have 2 stoplights. You know, one's in the middle of town, one is on Route 65 out there. But whenever that bus comes into town from winning a Northwest Conference, that stops right in the middle of town, and all those kids get out in the middle of the town. That stoplight the next day, right, Ned, you're not going to be able to see it because there's toilet paper hanging all over the place. The cops are out there talking to the kids and holding toilet paper for them while they're throwing it. And players get off and they mingle with the students who are out there and all the people from the community that are there. And it's just such a neat thing.
Ned, you remember me asking you about the toilet paper when I was driving through there?
I got to get a commercial break here. Hang on just 1 second here. KK Collision is a leader in the auto repair industry that has been servicing Northwest Ohio's auto needs for over 27 years. We offer a fast and reliable repair option that stands above the competition. When your vehicle enters our facility, you can be assured that you have chosen the most technologically advanced repair facility in the area. KK Collision is an automotive body and mechanical shop, as well as both a light and heavy-duty towing service located in Liberty Center. Our towing services cover Northwest Ohio and the surrounding area 24 hours a day. Are you in need of a repair estimate? Visit us anytime during business hours for a free estimate at T556 Ohio 109 on the north side of Liberty Center, or call 888-533-7801 or visit our website at kkcollision.com. K. Kern Painting is a proud sponsor of Northwest Ohio Athletics. K. Kern Painting was formed in 1998 by Kinsey Kern in Toledo and now has a footprint in Toledo, Cleveland, and Michigan, and has road crews traveling throughout the United States. For a free estimate or job opportunities with K. Kern Painting, visit their website at kkernpainting.com or call 419-351-1250 or stop by their Toledo location at 211 North Reynolds Road. The Swanton Welding Company proudly supports our local student athletes and coaches. We're committed to being your local steel fabrication company in Northwest Ohio and building projects across the country. For job opportunities at the Swanton Welding Company, visit www.swantonweld.com or visit them at 407 Zider Way in Swanton. Welcome back to our Week 9 KK Collision football show. Reliving some Rex Lindgren stories because he's got a connection down there to the Columbus Grove. These guys have a few stories like us.
Yeah, I think everyone has Rex Lindgren
If
stories.
they've met Rex, they have stories.
We played them twice, in 92 and then 2000, or 99, we played them twice in the playoffs. In 92, we got orange and black flowers sent to the coach's office. Congratulations for making the playoffs. Had to be somebody that was connected to Liberty Center. Not everybody just sends orange and black flowers to a football coach's office. And then in 99, they sent a guy down. I don't know if the guy did it on his own or not, but he was watching our practice. And so we're playing up at Defiance that year, and Fell had put in a 4 wide. We ran the wing T, but we knew we were going to have to throw the ball. And so we put in a 4 wide, just a double slots, single back, and shotgun with Andy Meyer at quarterback. Well, we hadn't run that the whole year. We practiced that week. Well, what's Rex do in pregame? He lines up in the 4 wide with a single shotgun. So it's like, all right, that guy was there watching our practice and brought it back to Liberty Center.
Right behind him.
I tell you, and Fell, he was so fired up about that. I tell you, he could not believe that. He was fired up that they knew that we had that single wide. He thought we were going to surprise him, It didn't matter. We threw it to Cody Manning 10 times that night. He scored 2 long touchdowns and had 170 yards. It was a heck of a game, but that's just a couple Liberty Center Rex Lindgren stories right there for you.
Guys, you guys mentioned the community of Columbus Grove, and obviously that's really come out. We've also talked at length about Clymer Stadium being an incredibly difficult atmosphere to play in. Is the community what makes that place a hard place to play?
I'm pretty closely involved with for the last 4 staffs, since Fell, and when they built that stadium, it was like, this is our house. Nobody's going to come to Grove and win here. And it became a pride thing. It's like we always could count on the player. It's not that they don't give 100% when we're on the road. It's like there's something about these schools are coming to Grove to play, and they just have that little edge, and I think we might live rent-free in our league opponents right now. It's just like playing Marion Local. Nobody thinks they have a chance when you go to play them, And when they come to Clymer, they know it's going to be hard-hitting. We're going to give them all our best shot, and we're going to have some fans, and it's a special place, and the schools, we got new lights now, and that's a lot of fun. We got a great sound system. We got so many people involved now every Friday night. There's up to a dozen people doing different things, and it's a special place. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just, it's our house. You don't come to our house and push us around.
What's Grove's record at Clymer Stadium, Ned?
Give me about 5 seconds. I had that page pulled up. Well, we've won 4 there this year, and we're 116-34. And we've won 26 of the last 28 regular season games there.
What 2 teams knocked you off there during that stretch?
Allen East knocked us off, was the last regular season loss there in 2019.
19, okay.
And they didn't score an offensive touchdown. They had a pick 6 and a kickoff return for a touchdown. We lost. And then Liberty Center beat us in the playoffs in 2021.
21.
I want to put you guys on the spot for a second, and you're going to leave somebody out, and you're probably not going to like this question. I want you to talk about, starting with you, Mr. Clymer, I want you to, over all the years, some of your favorite players that you've watched at Columbus Grove, and I don't care if it was back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, Trenton Barraza in modern day, some of your favorite players and maybe what you liked about them over the years at Grove.
Well, I started out he was my hero, was Glenn Kidd. And he played with, just before me, he was 3 years older than me. And Stackhouse was there, just come in with when Glenn was playing. And he was a terrific coach. And I watched him, he only lived probably about a block from me. And I used to play football with him when I was a little kid. Well, 3 years makes a lot of difference. And I got stomped a lot of times, too. But there was a lot of them who was very, very good. It was Lynn Derbyshire was very, very good. And now we got Barraza, he's good. But we've had a lot of them in between there, too, that was good. Good runners.
Ned?
I'll defer to these guys and I'll clean up.
Okay.
Danny?
You know, one thing that comes to mind, and playing back in the mid-'70s, I was fortunate enough my junior year, we were 8-2, and we had a 7 shutout team, and there was a lot of good round roster. And I don't know if anybody really holds any tackle. We had 11 guys chasing the football, and so there was a lot of great athletes then. But so often we focus so much on the skill players, and so often if you're the quarterback and you do well, you get a lot of praises, or running back. But unfortunately, sometimes if you don't do well, you're the scapegoat too. But one player, I like to get a recognition. We got to get up front and talk about some of these big guys up front. And one guy comes to my mind that I had fortunate enough to coach when back in early 2000s was Mike Young. And Mike was a offensive tackle, and then we played both ways. And so often like I said, we recognize those running backs, but we got an offensive tackle that started 55 consecutive football games at Columbus Grove. Now, I think that's pretty memorable. I think he deserves some kudos.
Absolutely.
Now, how many players in any division can you say started more games than him in the state of Ohio? 55 consecutive games. I'll put that challenge out there to you guys. And I just want to give him that credit, and I think that's what I think is pretty cool.
I remember Corey King told me the story of your, I think it was your state semifinal game. The other team had a really good defensive end that was going to maybe a MAC school, and he said Corey had him just eating nails that week.
Yeah. Mike was a tough guy.
Yeah.
Tough guy. Yeah.
That's great.
I guess, you stole my thunder a little bit there with Mike. He was one of my midget players. Now, if you know Mike Young today, he's probably 240, something like that.
Coached at Marysville.
Yeah. He was a midget at one time. And our weight limit was 132 pounds. When you got to be 12 years old, you got to be 132 pounds or under. And he came up and said, I'm really having a hard time getting under 132 pounds. And I thought, son, and Rick Mag was standing beside me. I said, what do you got on there? He says, well, I got my jersey, and I got a hooded sweatshirt on underneath of it, and I got another sweatshirt, and I got a T-shirt on under there. And I said, buddy, hey, let's go here. Take that off. Take it off. I said, you got to be you first. And just the greatest kid in the world. And I think you were with us that time we went to Toledo, Mike Young and I.
Recognizes.
Yeah, and they recognized him as one of the outstanding offensive players, at the Northwest Ohio Football Coaches Association. And it was so neat to see Mike there, that he did a lot for Columbus Grove, and he still got that baby face smile. I seen him a couple weeks ago in town, and just such a great kid. But through the years, everybody talks about the hit in Columbus Grove. And if you're from Grove, you know Alex Mosier. And that night, I tell you what, Coach Fell was coaching, and we are having a hard time beating Allen East, and I'd probably not beat Allen East in 4 or 5 years. I mean, they just had it going over there with Coach Goodwin. And we were close. We were right there, and we scored, and we were still behind. And I remember I had a son on that team. I said, when you guys came out of that huddle for the kickoff, you guys are ready. He says, Coach Fell looked at it and said, I want the ball. I don't want to tackle. I want the ball. And he said he looked over at all the kids there and just gave them the eye. And boy, on that kickoff, they went down the field, and Allen East comes flying back with that ball. And I tell you, Alex hit him like a rocket. I mean, just hit him, and you could hear it crack, and the ball bounced up in the air like that. And Grove gets it on about the 35-yard line there. We went on to win that game that night, and I think that stadium went berserk that night when that was all over with. And here Alex was a linebacker. He was just one of those grunt guys that was in there working hard. There's so many good kids that have played through the years, and each one of them is excellent in their way, but they're each different in their own way. We have quarterbacks through the years way back, like Jason Stechschulte years ago, awesome quarterback. And we had quarterbacks how should I say, a receiver, Chris Hawker, owns the little bar in Columbus Grove. I seen him lay out and do one of the Smith from Ohio State's catch with one hand, going out there like that on the sideline and pulling it in. And there's just been so many there, you can't hardly just number it down to one, because they really pull so hard for each other. I mean, we talk about Trent Brock. He'll come off that field, he's high-fiving people. He'll send somebody in for him, and he's over there cheering for him. When he runs back in the field, man, he's high-fiving him like that. They go up there and pat him on the back. They're just so much for each other, and that's our town. That's what we do.
Yeah, those as far as big physical guys, those guys were it. Mike Young and Alex Mosier. You got Jim Nunn and Jim Eversole. I'm going back to Strock's playing days here. Those were common names there for a 3-year run. Those guys were starting running backs and linebackers. And
Three Amigos.
Yeah, the Three Amigos. They hated that name, but it stuck. We had 3 senior running backs that year. But Scott Paldy was probably one of the best safeties that ever played. He would just come up and make plays. He had, I think, 19 career interceptions. He had 11 in the 1 year. We all know about the previous or the current teams. A.J. Schaefer and Tad Cooks, 2 of the best, most physical linebackers we've ever had. Just look at A.J.'s helmet over there. It's like battle zone on that top of that helmet there. That's pride there. He wore that, and he hit a lot of people with that on the offensive side, probably just as much as on the defensive side. I mean, we can go every year. I can say a player that deserves recognition. It's hard to single out, like Danny says. We've had so many good guys that have been around, and they're still supporting the program today. And one of my favorites all time is Joey Warnicki. The kid could do it all. He was a running back with very below average offensive lines, and he ended up being in the top 10 rushing yards at Grove. One of the top linebackers we've ever had, and he kicked off, he punted. He never came off the field, except I think for a kickoff return. It was the only time he wasn't on the field. And he was just a great kid, the most coachable kid. And Denny Clymer if he would have put him in the 90s when we had some different direction than what we had. He was a really good running back, and he was a tackler. He played safety. He set our school record, 28 tackles against Allen East the one year. He'd just make every tackle because he could just come up and they would run at him. He'd make a tackle, and he was no bigger than 5'7". He's a little guy, but he was a solid player. I mean, you go back through Al Martin was a good line, tough kid when Denny coached, and Dean Gieske, and guys that I got to know.
Both state competitive wrestlers.
They were both wrestlers at state. In the 70s, you got Don Stechschulte. My brother Dan practiced with him. He said he hit the hardest of anybody. He was a hard hitter. My brother would have been a freshman on those teams, so he got beat up regularly by Don Stechschulte. And Rick Mag mentioned his name. Sam Hawker was, I think he was a pretty good player from what I told you. You just go back every decade, back in the 68, we won the Northwest Conference. You had Denny Paul, you had Bob Baxter, you had Greg Miller was a fullback, and just a bunch of Grove people played on those guys. Jim Dunlap, you had a Nichols guy. Mike Nichols was good.
State champion hurdler.
Yep. And it just, Jack Ruin, I heard, was a hammer back at the safety position. He was an all-state guy.
He was on our 7 shutout team.
Yep. And so, you go back, and I got a list of everybody. It's not about me. It's the list of anybody who's played, and he's like, man, this guy was a heck of a player. And it's hard to single out the best, because we've had so many good ones. And back in the 60s and 70s, they didn't have the publicity like you get now. Mm-hmm. And it's just so much fun to go back and read about these guys because it's newspaper clippings, and you'd see the same names all the time come through, and it's just a lot of good football players from Grove and past, 50s and 60s, and even before that. It's just a lot of fun.
Let me take our final break, and we'll come back here. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store off Route 24 on State Route 109, just south of Liberty Center, now has 88 unleaded fuel and is your one-stop shop for fuel, food, drinks, and much, much more, including locally raised meats and home-baked goods. American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store is proud to support Black Swamp Football and is the host of the Black Swamp Football podcast, football show, and Saturday mornings Rise and Rewind. Stop in and see Glenn and Greg today and make American Freedom Energy and Grandma's General Store a part of your everyday routine.
High school seniors, uncertain that college is right for you? Concerned about the cost of higher education? At the Gherkin Companies, we offer rewarding livelihoods even without a degree. That's a good living straight out of high school with no tuition debt. Starting pay between recent college grads and those with high school diplomas is closer than you might think. So if you enjoy teamwork, working outdoors, and being part of something meaningful, consider your options at gherkincompanies.com/careers.
D&M2 Tires and Service is an auto repair shop and tire dealer serving Delta and the surrounding communities. They offer a variety of automotive repair and tire services to keep your vehicle rolling. In everything we do, our team is committed to providing the best workmanship and customer experience possible. Visit them at 6946 Road 5 in Delta during business hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 a.m. to noon on Saturdays. Or browse their catalog at dm2tire.com. Welcome back to our Week 9 KK Collision football show, joined by the Columbus Grove guys this week, celebrating 100 years of football this season. Got some more questions, Coach Strock, or can I fire one in there?
Go ahead.
All right.
I'm going to let you. I'll give you the floor here.
Were there any, you guys have kind of touched on this, but were there some idols for you growing up that you wanted to be like growing up in that community?
Growing up, I was watching football in the late 60s, and because I graduated in 76, so I remember going over to the field, and I always thought that Jimmy Dunlap was always kind of my idol, and I think he wore number 21, I believe. And I always, when I was a young kid, at junior high age or so, I'd go over, and he was always kind of my guy to watch play.
Yeah.
One of my good friends Denny Paulty is a few years older than I am, and he is a great coach, and talking to Denny Paulty about football is like trying to take a drink out of a fire hose. There's just so much coming at you at the time. But I tell you what, I always admired him, the way he played all sports. He was good in track, he was good in football for sure, outstanding, and good at basketball. And it just amazed me, like him and another good friend, Rick Mag. You look at their kids as they go down, they passed on everything that they have to those kids. You look at Rick Mag, even when he played basketball, I can remember him ripping that basketball down on a rebound and glaring at you. It was amazing. I wanted to be like Rick. Thank God I didn't, I guess, anyway. But anyway, but no, those guys right there, it's, and you look at Denny's kids. I tell you what, Steve is amazing. He played for Mount Union when he went to college, and they got a great program over there. Scott, he just a wealth of knowledge over there at Lima Central Catholic, and they're just good people too. And I know the Mag kids and us were all really close.
Right.
And I looked at them, and that's good people.
I don't know, growing up, I remember when my brother Dan was the stat guy for Dan, and when he coached there those 3 years. And I always would, when my brother, he graduated in 78, so I would have been 6 years old when he graduated. And I just remember him, I don't remember his games at all, I just remember his jersey number. And I would write 1 through 35 on my paper, and he would hang it in his locker and stuff. He's my older brother. He's about 12 years older than me, so I idolized my brothers. They both played, and so I didn't really have like an idol, but I just wanted to play football. Todd Huffman was quarterback. He was one of our better quarterbacks we ever had, in 3 years. And we had an exciting 3 years there with our basketball team. We had some really good basketball teams, and those guys all played basketball too. 8 overtimes against Ottoville. And so it was that was exciting time when I was in my junior 5th through 6th grade and 7th grade years. I just wanted to do what everybody else had done. Go play football, and I wasn't a very good quarterback, but I played up until my senior year. I played quarterback, and it was fun. Even though we weren't very good, I tell you, I have a lot of memories with my classmates, and I tell my kids all the time, they lost less games than I won when I was in high school. I probably think we won 10 games in 4 years when I played, and my son Zane graduated last year. I don't even think they lost 8 games, 4 years. And so they don't understand what it means to be on the other side of that. But me and my classmates and the guys I played with, we had so much. It wasn't fun winning or losing, don't get me wrong, but we enjoyed playing football for Grove, because we had every excuse to not play. We could have done something else, we could have gotten a job, just went, but we had every excuse not to play, but we stuck it out and we played. And that's more my memories than anything, just being under those lights and playing at Grove was exciting for me.
Well, what I remember most about back, I know these fellows right here wasn't old enough then when I played and when I was a kid. And the only thing the people always ask us from Columbus Grove, how come you have such large people playing football? And always it was said it was because of our sulfur water. And that went by for years. That's what made the Columbus Grove better than anybody else. Sulfur water.
Well, you can always tell the sulfur water homes because their white jerseys were always kind of discolored.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
When was the last game at home that you guys missed attending?
Well, for me, it would have been, I think, 1986, I missed the first home game because my brother got married that weekend, and I had a rehearsal dinner to go to. I think it was either 85 or 86 would have been.
There's really no excuse, Ned.
I know. I gotta get my priorities straight. But no, I haven't missed, in my lifetime, I haven't missed that I remember, missed too many games, so that's just what I do.
Well, for being the announcer for 46 years, I never missed a home game. So I've seen 46 years of Columbus Grove football, and with the last 2 years, getting away from doing the announcing and passing it on to someone else, we get to sit next to my wife at a football game and explain to her what football is, and it's such an easy question, but don't want to go there. Okay. But anyway, it was something that, like I said before, when those lights come on, you're supposed to be down there, and half of the fun is watching the football game, but seeing the other people. How you been? How's everything? Did I see that your dad was sick? And it's like that caring community coming together. It had been 46 years of watching Columbus Grove football. Yeah.
Well, I live right next door, so I have no excuse. So, it gets to be about 10 till 7, I'm walking out the back door, and just walk over there. I got a gate, my own little gate that goes right over the athletic field, and I just walk over, and so, yeah, I can't remember last
The athletic department wants to know.
There's a ticket booth there.
Okay, all right. I was just checking.
There's a ticket booth there. I enjoy. I go to the track meets. I go just when there's something going on. I walk over there. It's cheap entertainment. And then a lot of times on Saturday when there's nothing going on there, we go up to the barbershop and watch them cut hair. Small town Americana.
One of the things with the people that are here tonight, and I'm not putting a flower on them or anything like that, but we were very fortunate to have somebody like Gary Clymer in Columbus Grove. The Clymer name is a very, very good name in town, and you gave so much, not only the stadium, but through the years, to Columbus Grove sports, whatever else it needs help with. Ned is Mr. Stat. I mean, he knows everything. The only thing he don't have on here is how many bags of popcorn they sold at a game. He's got everything there. And Dan, one of the things about Dan, he knows everybody in Columbus Grove, and everybody knows him. And so it's the things that he's given to Grove as far as helping out with football and everything like that. These guys have given a lot, and that's just typical of the people that are at Grove.
And just something else to recognize while we sit here, I look back here, the Gherkin Company, where I live in relationship to the athletic field, they live on the other side of and the Gherkin family grew up right there. And so they have helped a lot with our football program, as the Clymer family has. And I see the sign here, and I just want to say, give them, as the Gherkin family has done a lot and been very generous to help us out, and they remember where they're from. And I haven't seen either one of them in a long time. They're a couple they're Grove family, and they've contributed a lot to our athletic facility.
Well, Mandy's down in Bluffton now.
Yeah, well,
that'll be interesting next week.
We're not talking about Bluffton at all. We got LCC. Scott Paldy's a Grove boy, and he's coming back over there, and he's going to have a really well-prepared football team, and it'd be the kiss of death to say anything about Bluffton.
I like it. Is there a game in you guys' lifetimes that you've witnessed that sticks out for you? I know you won a state championship. Is there a game, or maybe there's a handful of them, that jumped out in your minds that are...
I always say this, obviously the playoff games that we've had the last 10 years or 20 years since we won state, if I were to rank them, they would be 1 through 25, don't get me wrong, but the one game I really remember, besides the Allen East game where we had that huge hit by Alex Mosier, was the next year Spencerville came to Grove, and their quarterback was Kevin Sensible, who's their basketball coach now, and he was a fine quarterback. And it was when Scott Paldy was a senior that year, and we just couldn't get anything going offensively. And late in that game, they were driving to put the game away, and Trent Renner, one of our defensive tackles, busted through the line and just absolutely drilled Sensible, and he fumbled it, and Chad Bernheiser, one of our coach's sons, picked it up and ran about 60 yards for a touchdown. And after that, I tell you, we weren't even, we did lose the Delphus that next week, but then we beat Antwerp 90-0 the week after that, and we got on a roll, and that game sticks out to me because it wasn't looking good, and our guys, our hard-nosed guys, just come through and made a play. And the 93 Spencerville game for me will be always one of my favorite games I've ever watched, because it was contested from get-go, and it was low scoring, but they had a great team and we were good, and we come out on top.
Wow. That's cool.
I guess for me, it was a 2003 state championship game. Because you go into that game and you hear all the hype, you can't beat Marion Local. You can't beat Marion Local. These guys believed in it down there, and as the game went on, we had a lead, and Marion Local missed an extra point, and then they went for two the next time they got the ball or got a touchdown, and that failed, so now they're behind by 2, and they brought the ball downfield, and they were getting ready to score or going to score. It was just in the inside of you, you just is the anticipation of what's going to happen. Grove had the ball at the end of the game, and Blaine got the pitch to the right side, and he went flying around there, and it was 4th down and 2. He got hit before he crossed the line to make a first down, but in his smartness, he just landed on top of one of the Marion Local kids and crawled across him and rolled over with the ball to get the first down. And at that point, you knew that we had a state championship ring. I can still see Scott Paulty when Marion Local was moving the ball down the field, and he'd be over there on the sides, kind of like, Scott was the defensive coordinator that year, and then he seen him moving against him, and it's, come on, Scott, you can do it, pull this baby out, and doing that. We could have scored at the end. I think we were down to like the 2-yard line, and we were hit by 2. We didn't want to score because that would give it an 8-point lead. If we would miss an extra point, they could get, and they were moving it, they could come down and score, and so we just kept sitting on the ball. When we got back to Columbus Grove that night, all the fire trucks were bringing us into town, as they always do. The fire department really takes care of the sports teams, bringing us into town. The whole square was filled, and from there, everybody walked down to the high school gym. And I know, as I was announcing it there, one of the guys came up and said, Denny, he says, I don't know if this is really safe or not. I mean, it's filled up. All the bleachers are filled. The floor is filled with people. They're sitting down there. And they said there's around 1,500 people in a gym that was probably rated at 950 or something like that. And the neat thing, if you guys remember this too, I'm sure you guys do, but there was a sign that said, "Go Bulldogs, take state." And I think you were the one that got the sign, Dan, but they had all the whole team sign it. We had a young boy in Columbus Grove, as one of the Blankemeyer boys, that was very sick at that time, very, very, very sick, with a bunch of bills. And I think it was the athletic director came up to me and says, Denny, why don't you auction off that sign, and we'll give the money to the Blankemeyers over there. So I started auctioning this thing off, and man, it's really rolling, and the football players were standing on their chairs, and they were taking bids from people out there, and it was going up and up, and it got up to $1,500 for this sign, and there's 4 different people, 4 different businesses that were bidding on it, Clymer's being one of them right there. And the athletic director came up and said, Denny, I tell you what, and I think, Dan, you came up and said, how about if I get 3 other of these? You're not going to sell them to anybody else, but we'll have the guys signed. If you're willing to pay $1,500 for one of these, each one of you guys, $1,500, and that $6,000 is going to the Blankemeyer family. And I tell you what, it puts kind of tears in your eyes to remember that, and looking over and seeing the dad just bent over and just holding his head and just crying because of the generosity of a town that loves sports and loves their kids. And so that was mine right there.
obviously being a part of the state championship team, and Coach Cooper, I'll never forget, I was working out in my yard, and I'd watch practice. I still watch practice most of the time when I'm working in the yard, and Coach Cooper walks up and he says, why do you just keep staying there watching? Why don't you come over and help us? So that year I went over and just started, all right. And so being involved in that was obviously very memorable. But when I was a head football coach back in the early 80s, when we had, as Ned mentioned, we were fortunate enough to upset an undefeated Jefferson team, Deltas Jefferson team, and we had a lot of good athletes on the field, and we had Todd Huffman, Joe Gerdeman, Jeff Basinger, Jeff Vance, my brother Tracy. There's a lot of good athletes on the field, and I probably didn't do them all justice, but we were able to come out and we made some plays that day, and we were probably about 500. They were undefeated, and we came out of our shoes, and we were able to win that game. So that was pretty memorable.
Yeah. Mr. Clymer, you have some favorite memories?
Not really.
Okay.
I don't have very many memories yet. 86.
Well, don't let Dan kid you. Cheryl's the one out there doing the yard work most of the time.
I was going to say, he's got to have the best looking yard in Grove. All that yard work.
One thing I want to say is that this past Saturday we had a Columbus Grove football player, and I want to give some recognition to our kicker, Reese Veerhoff. His dad Nick is our superintendent, and Reese he's a kicker, Marshall. He's probably our only Division I football player, and Reese is he had a big weekend. He had a 36, a 42, and I think a 51, which is his career best field goal in the first half, for Marshall. And it was really a cool story, as I mentioned earlier, is when Reese was a high school boy, the goalpost right next to my fence, the school fence right by my yard, we have a 180-pound Newfoundland, and he's brown. We call him Baloo, off Jungle Book, the bear. And he would stand there foaming at the slobbering, and Reese would kick the ball over the fence. Well, Baloo, he'd just stand out there barking. One bite, he'd go up and snap that football. He'd flatten the football in 5 seconds. And I can't hear he flattened 5 footballs. I think my wife made a donation back to Coach Schaefer. She said, damn, them footballs are expensive. But so when Reese, I always kidded around with the Veerall family that we take a little bit of credit for Reese's success, because Blue put a lot of pressure on him to make those kicks. Dog. And so he got a senior picture with a flattened football. Reese had one end of his mouth and one end, and Blue had it.
Nice.
It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
That's small town.
Yeah, his parents are salt of the earth.
Yeah, and that's football's version of the movie Sandlot.
Yeah.
With the big dog. It was kind of cool. Small town Americana.
Yeah, and you also have a guy by the name of Sparty.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's kind of the definition of your community almost.
Sports, yeah.
I mean, nobody knows his first name or last name anywhere outside of Columbus Grove. Just Sparty. You didn't know his first name and last name until this year, did you, Tori?
No,
But you knew
no.
Sparty.
No, he loves Columbus Grove.
Like yours, Tori. You know how yours really, projects out there.
So does yours.
Sparky will be sitting in there at a wrestling meet, and he'll go, gentlemen, it's time to start wrestling, boys. Like that, it just echoes through that gym. It's just,
Keith Sparks, he's also Sparty.
Okay.
Sparty,
Yeah.
Keith Sparks is one of Grove's most loyal fans. He goes to every game, track meet, wrestling, girls basketball. You'll see him at about every game.
Yeah. One of Reese's stories is coaching him in youth football. And he would always come up, I would be coaching the upper kids, and he would be like a 9 or 10-year-old at that time, and he would come over after. He says, Coach Ricker, man, he said, I scored a touchdown tonight. And I says, hey, you know what you got to do? You got to go up to your dad and say, you got to stop at McDonald's on the way home and make it a supersize. You just take care of it like that. But anyway, his dad told me after he graduated, when they moved to Columbus Grove, he really loved soccer. Loved soccer. Columbus Grove did not have boys soccer. And he says, Dad, would it be okay if I would open and roll into Ottawa Glandorf and play soccer, for them over there? Because they've got a good soccer team. And I remember Nick telling his dad, Nick Beerhoff, the superintendent of Columbus Grove, saying, son, I am the superintendent of Columbus Grove. And he says, you will be going to school. And I guess he got an okay, and everything is just perfect after that.
That's funny.
If you'd ever see him, he would talk your leg off. He'd say, hey, how you doing with football? Oh, I'm doing good. You know, my first game was at Notre Dame. And he said, when I walked out there and I saw those little pretzel sticks up in the air like that, and then I saw the big gold dome and touchdown Jesus. Oh my gosh, he said, it's just awesome. I said, well, you made a field goal. Yeah. He's like, it's awesome, man. He just loves the sport.
Yeah, didn't he miss a PAT to start that game?
Yeah,
right.
he did.
And then he made a key field goal later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ned, when did you start doing stats?
The year after I graduated, I started doing stats. 91. I graduated in 91, so that fall I started doing stats.
Okay. And just something that you wanted to do to stay around the program, or
Yeah,
was it?
pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, I never thought I'd be a coach or anything, but then I did coach a couple years with Mike Fell. I was a JV coach on 93 and then 92 and 93 I coached.
Okay.
But no, it's just something I started doing. There was a need there. I mean, he had some parents that were doing it, but it's better not to have parents on the field. Not that they were good people, but it's just better not to have parents on the field just to avoid any issues, down the road. And that's why I took over. There was a need for it, and then I just fell in love with it. And we actually mentioned it on the way here. I just don't know when or if or I ever quit. I just can't see me not going to a Grove football game down the road. But there will be a day though when that streak ends. It's just.
You'll be sitting next to your wife at the football game.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've never sat next to her at a Grove football game to JV and junior high when my kids played.
So she's encouraged you to stay with the stats then? So Ned, pretty much. How many hours do you put in stats during the season or the year or whatever?
Well, he also does NWC stats too.
Right now, each week I probably have 3 to 4 hours, maybe. Like you said, I do the Northwest Conference stats. They send them to me. I got a spreadsheet, and then I send them out to all the media and stuff. And then I do I'll probably do that maybe tomorrow night now. I'll do a preview of Grove's next opponent, and I'll put some history stuff on there, and I'll send that to who's ever covering the game or doing like you guys, talking about Grove. So that's a couple hours each week. At the end of the season, once it's all done, I usually get my everything all updated and reformatted to where I could print it out if anybody asks. I probably have a good 10 to 12 hours in it. Now to get to that point, it took a long time, but now it's just updating all the records and making sure everything's accurate. Just something I do,
How far back do you have stats for? What's the earliest season?
I got all the points scored back to the 40s because they did have box scores on. They were different back then. It said who scored and how many points. It didn't say how they scored, but the article might say it. But I went through all the old videttes and yearbooks and stuff to get stuff. Some other people helped with sending me stuff. So I got everybody who scored a point way back to the late 40s, I think.
Wow.
But I got a list of, like I said, through the yearbooks and the newspaper articles and stuff, I got a list of about 1,800 names now, I think, who's all played for Grove and what year they played. That's the one that I really like going through. You'll see 4 generations of Clymers on that list. You'll see I'm a second generation, and my boy's the second generation. So it's neat going back. I got them categorized by year and by name, so I can go back who played on what teams. I can see who played on those teams, and then I can also see the whole list all alphabetized. It's just
Wow.
Well, I know, spending time coaching, how valuable it is to have these things to reference, Ned, and I just don't think you probably appreciate it enough. And we all thank you as coaches and football fans to be able to open up that book and just see all the time and effort you put into it. And I really I think everyone in the football community wants to thank you for that.
Well, what it does for today's kids, it gives them, I showed Dan before we left tonight, we have a board up in the locker room of all the all-league and all-state players, we have records for these kids. It gives them goals, and every kid that scores a touchdown, I always go up and congratulate them. I said, hey, that's your first touchdown. You're in the record book forever. Yeah. It gives these kids meaning to, man, I'm a part of Columbus Grove football. I got anybody who's gotten a tackle from 1986 on. I have, somebody said, you got 105 pages. I was going to look to see how many Trent Barraza's dad ran in high school. I said, you wouldn't see it on this 105 pages, because if I had everybody who carried the ball, I would probably have 205 pages, but so before the game the other night, I was on my phone looking, and Trent Barraza's dad, who played on our state championship team, he ran for 350 yards in his career, Bobby. Bobby Barraza. And that's a nickname for Trent is Bobby, And so, these kids, it gives them something, a meaning to be part of something of history. It's a big deal to be part of Columbus Grove football. And the stats, I think, just, besides my hobby, the kids love it too, I went up to Trent the other night. He needed 102 yards to hit 5,000 yards for his career. And I said, hey, Trent, if you give me $5 and you need that extra yard to break that record, I'll give you that extra yard, because I get crap all the time, because like the other night we had, the goal was 200 yards and we only had 196 yards rushing, and they all looked at me. I said, hey, I expect perfection. If the goal's 200, you better get 200. Yeah, so I have a lot of fun with it too with the kids.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And you're looking for some college players, right? If there's some players out there that played college, how can they get their name involved with this? We're
cleaning up the list. We're down to about 4 or 5 people that are sending some stuff to us. So, I think we got it covered. We've had maybe 45 kids that have played college football for at least 1 year at any level. We've actually got a kid right now playing semi-pro, John Bernal. He played on our 2020 team. He played at the College of Worcester for a couple of years. Now he's playing, I think, up in Canada, and he made their all-star team as a cornerback or outside linebacker maybe. It's like a semi-pro team up there. It's not the Canadian Football League, but we've had some guys play. They want recognition. They played rugby in college. Well, sorry, we don't have a rugby program. We had 3 or 4 guys play rugby. Jim Eversole, Matt Elbrock, and the other guys. But we've had about 45, I think, kids play college football for us.
Yeah. Great stuff. You good?
I'm good.
Good. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to do this. It was an honor. Thank you guys for what you've done for Columbus Grove football and Northwest Ohio football. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good week, everybody. We will have our Liberty Center guys back here next Wednesday on our KK Collision football show. We'll talk to you then.